All right, let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour, where the Myanmarese police has clashed with protesters in the city of Delaware and also Yangon for the second consecutive day today. Now, according to reports that are in fact emerging from Myanmar, the local media is stating that several protesters have actually been gunned down and have been left wounded after the police resorted to using live ammunition in a bid to disperse the protesters. All right, now this is mobile phone footage that's in fact emerged in terms of what's actually been happening in Yangon, the largest city in Myanmar. These are disturbing scenes in the aftermath of the police resorting to using live ammunition on the protesters. The police has been accused of using certain heavy-handed means in dispersing the protesters, and according to local media reports, several people were to be found bleeding and were being carried away by other protesters from the protest side. It is not clear as to how many people may have died or how many are hurt, but according to local reports that are emerging locally, it is being said that the injuries were of course caused due to the use of live ammunition by the police. The police has also been accused of using stun grenades, tear gas, amongst other riot control measures. The violence erupted early this morning when medical students were marching in Yangon streets near the Hilidan Center intersection, which has become the gathering point for protesters who then fan out to other parts of the city. Now, the footage that's become available shows the protesters running away from the police as they charged at them. Residents, meanwhile, are setting up makeshift roadblocks to slow the police advance to impose its authority in the face of widespread defiance. The police has also arrested many and has shoved them into police trucks to be taken away. The military coup has brought thousands of protesters to Myanmar streets. Now, despite the growing intimidation from the security forces, the police were out in force across cities in a determined bid to try and stamp out the protests. The chaos unfolded in the city of Delaware after the police started firing rubber bullets and tear gas shells to disperse the protesters. The frightened demonstrators could be seen scurrying after hearing the gunshots. Now, the country, remember, has seen an outpouring of anger and defiance from the protesters. Many of them gathered to call for the release of the controversial civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi, who, remember, was detained in the morning of the 1st of February. They're also demanding that the military should restore democracy. The military has detained the elected leaders, and it is alleged that Aung San Suu Kyi and her party had resorted to widespread electoral fraud in the 8th of November election, and that is what resulted in a landslide victory for the controversial civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Remember, Aung San Suu Kyi is all set to appear before the court on Monday to face charges after she was detained by the police in a military coup last month. This amidst rising uncertainty over her whereabouts. Reports also suggest that Aung San Suu Kyi has been moved to an undisclosed location. Earlier, the leader was being kept under house arrest in Naypyidaw, the capital. Now, the Myanmarese military has since annulled the results of the November general elections. All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what's actually playing out in Myanmar even as we speak, we're joined in by journalist Min Tan, who's joining us live from Yangon. Now, Ms. Tan, thank you very much indeed for joining us in this broadcast. Let me begin by asking you this. You've in fact been live tweeting and putting out what's happening right now on the streets of Myanmar on social media, specifically in Yangon, where you're based. Bring us up to speed with what's unfolding there.
A continued escalation of force by the police. I think yesterday we saw the first rounds of tear gas being used, and it seems like today, starting around 8 a.m., live bullets were used, as well as other crowd dispersal methods. And it really looks like what the security forces are trying to do is prevent protests from happening in the first place, as opposed to other days where it looked like they were trying to either move protesters from where they were or sort of try to disrupt them after they have formed.
And also what we've witnessed today is the police resorting to using live ammunition on a scale that we've not witnessed so far since the military coup. What has caused this escalation?
So the authorities have been using water cannon guns. Those have been used since the very first days. We've also seen more recently live bullets. More recently we've seen live bullets, but since the beginning they've been using rubber bullets as well. Yesterday we saw tear gas canisters as well as flash bang grenades and other sort of quote unquote less than lethal crowd dispersal methods. And we've really been seeing protesters try to use strategies that have been used in places like Hong Kong in order to try and limit harm that's done to them, as well as limit the movement of police.
Right.
And the last couple of days, we've seen a lot of barricades being built by protesters.
And also one interesting manner in which protest has been registered over the military coup was done by Myanmar's United Nations envoy in New York, who vowed to fight on after the military junta, in fact, decided to fire him for urging the member nations of the United Nations to use any means possible to reverse the military coup. You know, how is this being viewed by the military junta within Myanmar?
I think that really depends on the unity and the strength of the people, whether or not they can outlast the junta, which, has billions of dollars at their disposal, as well as, all the weapons one could really imagine. People power have toppled military and other sort of dictatorships before. We've seen that in the Philippines. But I don't think that's going to happen as quickly as some people might be hoping. But if the people stay unified, it's, more than possible.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.